All right, this video lecture is, it's going to be review, it's going to be brief. I just want to remind you all of a few things as you are beginning to plan out and conceptualize and think about your short story, as well as the research paper. We discussed this when we talked about structure and narrative arc, but it's something to think about, that I want you to think about again as you begin sort of planning out what your short story is going to be. So there's this idea of the logical progression, this concept of the logical progression of ideas. And really at the backbone of this is that you are writing for an audience as much as you are writing for yourself. That being said, the reader's comprehension is of the utmost importance. So you have to build your short story, or any writing for that matter, has to be built with this internal logic in the progression of ideas. So you have to, it's not just sort of sitting down and writing what comes to mind. I know you know this, I know we've talked about it, I know that you're probably getting that point. But the way to go about doing this is to think of yourself as a reader reading something, really. So what information do you need to give so that if you were reading this, you would understand what's going on, okay? And a big part of this, as you're getting the hang of how workshops work and revision works, and sort of this guided process that we're going to be going through. I'm trying to give you as much time as I can between sort of phases within the projects, so that, when you come back and look at it a few days later, you may see things that you did not notice before, okay? So this logical progression is from, big picture stuff all the way down to micro level stuff. Like big picture wise, this plot point leads to this plot point, leads to this thing that develops the character, leads to this tension in the conflict. It's big picture stuff, and it's all the way down to, this sentence progresses into this one, that sort of thing. The second part of this is sort of the other side of the coin for this, is analyzing cause and effect. All writing flows in a cause and effect manner. One thing happens, which makes the next thing happen. And this is, again, big picture view all the way down to microscopic level. This element causes this thing to happen, causes this event to happen, causes the character to react in this way. That cause and effect relationship must be clear, okay? In micro level, words build off previous ones, sentences build off previous ones, etc., etc. And all of this relates back to that narrative arc that we talked about, that structure where you can manipulate structure with the in media res and the temporal, that sort of thing. And the last part of this I want to talk about is, if you remember those modes of discourse that go into writing, narration, exposition, description, and argumentation. I don't have argumentation here because it is, that's purely, well, not purely, but we tend to think of that as more in research-based writing. But with narration, exposition, and description, you have to find a good balance. You don't want there to be too much, generally we don't get into a problem of there being too much narration. You often see in writing where there's too much exposition, too much explaining, and too much description. It's overly descriptive. That's one of the big complaints with maximalism, is that it's too descriptive. So the thing that I often see that students struggle with is too much exposition, explaining too much, not telling rather than showing. And there's this ridiculous video called Too Much Exposition Theater with Stephen Colbert and Alec Baldwin. I suggest you watch it. I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video in this module. You should watch it. It's funny, it's short, and it does sort of a fun, ridiculous job of showing what too much exposition looks like. Okay?